In politics, there are events and developments that are more important than others. And then there are events and politics that are game-changing. Yesterday's Jubilee National Delegates Conference at the Gong Racecourse was a game changer in Kenyan politics. Oh yes. Now, very briefly before I proceed, I need to make it clear that I have no problem with political analysts in Kenya who usually wait for my analysis in order to do theirs or in order to make theirs better. I have no problem. Why? Because it is very important that we all unite in this one very noble cause of a better Kenya. All these other things like competition between analysts, etc., are right now secondary. We need to save our country first. There will be plenty of time to compete later. So you're very welcome. I have no issues with that. I needed to clear the air with that. Now, the reason why yesterday's NDC, Jubilee NDC, was a game changer, actually there are many reasons, but one of the main reasons was a phrase mentioned by both Raila Amolo Odinga that many of us may have missed, and also Kalonzo Musyoka mentioned it. And it is the phrase self-determination. Okay? Now, bila kizungu mingi, what these Azimio leaders were telling us is that we have reached a place where they will even consider secession. In my opinion, this message was very mainly targeted at the wazungus. Okay? Unajua mzungu anakuja hapa, yeye anataka tu Afrika wajipange, yeye aendelee na biashara yake. Ajali masilahi ya watu, ajali haki ya binadamu. Kwa hivyo ni kuja tu hapa kusema kaeni chini muongee, mumalize hii maneno. Hii maneno itamalizwa namna gani? Anyway, there's also been a lot of very frustrated talk by Kenyans on social media about Raila Odinga changing his course, and going for some sort of discussion with Ruto on the way forward, possibly leading to some cooperation. Indeed, many of you have contacted me, and expressed fear that we are headed to a handshake. Well, Raila Odinga made it very clear yesterday, referring to people who are obsessed with a non-existent handshake that will never happen. Self-determination. Self-determination means that Rigathi Gachagua can keep his company, okay, and then release the non-shareholders, to create their own nation where everybody is a shareholder. That is really the long and short of it. Now, I'm very sure that none of these Azimio leaders in their hearts support secession, dividing the country. None of them supports it. And so some analysts can read it as a threat, on the negotiation table to get your way. However, in my opinion, it is more than that. What these Azimio leaders are saying is that if it becomes completely impossible, then self-determination must kick in. That's really what they're saying. But let me start this at the beginning. The main issue that was on the table, the main agenda at this National Delegates Conference. And it was to expel those officials who have gone rogue and are causing problems in the Jubilee Party. Of course, we know who's sponsoring them. Because, as I said in a previous video, it is pretty obvious that a strong Jubilee Party is a threat to the Ruto presidency. That's really what it is. And many Kenyans who know the power of the state and the system and state machinery are scared. They fear that at the end of the day, these rogue Jubilee party members or people who were previously in Jubilee as of yesterday could end up destroying the Jubilee party, and they could end up winning the day for Kenya Kwanza. Yeah. However, that is not true. That cannot happen. And I'll tell you why. And it is for a very simple reason. This coup within Jubilee, financed, organized, plotted, choreographed from outside the political party called Jubilee, is not supported by Jubilee supporters on the ground. Jubilee supporters on the ground are very much against Kenya Kwanza. Yeah, and anybody from the Mount Kenya region, talk to your friends, will tell you that in clear language. So that's where the problem is. And remember, this kind of operations, where you try and mess up things in an opposition party or a party that you see as a threat, they're best done chini ya maji, secretly. But now everybody in Kenya knows what's happening. Everybody can see the hand of the government in the Jubilee party. And therefore, it cannot be effective. Trust me. You know, we said in a previous video here that what we have in Kenya today is one side using cunning and the other side using wisdom. Yeah, and of course we know where wisdom comes from. And we also know that when you're being cunning, you're headed in the direction of Jehanamu, kwa shetani. Yeah, that is very clear. And there's another problem. In another time, in another season, it would have worked. People have been cunning before and it has worked. But the season which Kenya has entered into right now does not favor that working. So relax. Nothing is going to happen to Jubilee. Mark my words and challenge me on that when something actually happens to Jubilee, because it won't happen. It will never happen. And the side that is using wisdom pulled out another very effective card yesterday at the Jubilee NDC. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka of Azimio told us, and Honorable Musyoka is a lawyer by profession, a senior counsel. Yeah. The Wiper Party leader told us that if what had been passed at the Jubilee NDC is challenged in court, anybody goes to court, anybody goes to the party tribunal to challenge what was done yesterday, then the ongoing bipartisan talks, kwisha maneno. He said that very clearly, and he explained why. Because what Azimio is asking the other side is to stop interfering with democracy. Yeah. When a member decides to cross over to the other side, they must go for a by-election. Okay? And these people within Azimio, or these people were in Azimio, Sabina Chege, and this Kanini guy, yeah, by the way, Kanini means small in the Kikuyu language, and their Kenya Kwanza masters, if they challenge what was passed yesterday by a very crowded, packed NDC, then those talks are gone. Okay? You know, if you don't want to get confused with the way Raila Odinga is behaving and with some of these pronouncements, you need to make a distinction. Yeah. Which audience is being addressed and which audience should just ignore what is happening. Let me explain. Raila Odinga's recent actions, yeah, meeting somebody at a sports event, shaking somebody's hand, discussing, laughing, that was aimed at the Mzungu audience. Okay? And Kalonzo Musyoka's remarks also, that if anybody challenges what party leader Uhuru Kenyatta and the NDC passed, those particular remarks were also targeted at the Mzungu. Because Azimio know Kenya Kwanza very well. Kenya Kwanza will do what they have to do. They will ignore threats. Because in case you didn't know, Kenya Kwanza are using kifua, thorax. Yeah. And Azimio are using wisdom. Okay? So they'll ignore and they'll go ahead with their carefully laid plans. Mpende mspende. That's what's going to happen. But Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday told us what will happen when Kenya Kwanza, UDA, behave predictably. Do what most people think they will do. Yeah, what the consequences will be. And so it is very possible that the Mzungu will step in and tell Kenya Kwanza to Liza Boli. That's very possible. But if it happens, now you will know, if you took in this analysis, exactly what is happening. So my friends, in case you see Raila Odinga going to State House, don't get your blood pressure up. No, there's no need. Sit back and ask yourself, which audience is this targeted at? And then you'll never get confused. That's a very hot tip. And I'm sure it will be very useful even to my fellow analysts. Yeah, because I saw an analysis this morning about how Raila has changed and is now on the verge of a handshake or cooperation with Kenya Kwanza. That is not the true situation. It's not. And here's my second hot tip, which played out very clearly yesterday. You need to remember that former President Uhuru Kenyatta still has his main advisors intact. Okay? And you need to remember that former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is still playing politics very closely with his twin brother, joined at the hip, Raila Amolo Odinga. And that is why something I saw Uhuru using when he was president, I also saw being used yesterday. And it is something which is very important in this life. But it is even more important. It is something called timing. Timing. Okay? In football, yeah, most of us guys here love soccer on this channel. In football, when that person running down the wing, that attacker, crosses the ball into the goal area, the striker who will score must have his timing perfect. If he arrives in the penalty area too early, defenders will be able to deal with him very easily. If he arrives too late, he will miss the cross. He must arrive precisely on time. Timing. If his timing is perfect, it's a goal, for sure. Ask yourself, why did President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta take so long to start acting emphatically against those insulting him? Yeah, against those dragging his name in mud. And yet it is common sense that you must treat a former head of state with respect. And in that way you ensure that they will never step back into your politics. That's common sense. Let me give you a quick political example from a neighboring country. When the late President John Pombe Magufuli went overboard with what he was doing in Tanzania, the former presidents, especially former President Jakaya Kikwete, were alarmed. Yeah, and they tried their best to advise Magufuli, but they could not step in. They could not hold meetings. They could not express their opinions in public. Why? Because the respect for them remained as retired heads of state. Yeah, and that time there were other people like Mkapa, the late President Benjamin Mkapa. They could not step in. They could do nothing. But what happened in Kenya? Immediately the new regime was sworn in, they went for President Uhuru Kenyatta's jugular. How do you do that? That's not common sense. That's not wisdom. That is beyond a blunder. I don't want to use abusive language, but it doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you? Please explain to me in a language I can understand in the comments area why that was a smart political move, or what somebody was up to in the first place. Doesn't make sense. And therefore we have to assume it was all emotional. And in this life, although as humans have emotions, you will achieve zero. In fact, you will backpedal when you put in emotions. What Kenya Kwanza did to former President Uhuru Kenyatta was similar to somebody going to a police station and throwing stones inside the cop shop. Yeah. And a cop comes out and says, "We kijana, tafadhali, enda nyumbani. Wachana na hii maneno." And then the cop goes back inside. And then this person keeps on throwing stones. What do you think will happen next? There'll be trouble for that young man. Big trouble. Because he has persisted again and again. His target has remained cool. His target has decided to be wise. But here's my point. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta remained cool. Why? Timing. Okay? And these people continued throwing their stones. And things in the country continued to get worse and worse. Prices continued to climb. Kenyans continued to suffer and sink even deeper and deeper into suffering. Timing. And then the situation got to what it is today. Just go to the Mount Kenya region, and try and sell the UDA party and its policies. Go today, go even now, to anywhere in the Mount Kenya region and try and promote government policies. Then see what will happen. Utajua ujui. Yeah. We even had a meeting in Isiolo, graced by President Ruto, a day before the Jubilee NDC. And people walked out in protest. There were empty chairs. Only the sycophants and the fearful remained at that meeting. Everybody else walked out. And so, immediately after that, Jubilee hold their national delegates conference. Oh boy, super effective. You see, politics is like timing a wave. Yeah, I know most of us are not interested in surfing, in the ocean. Yeah, timing waves and then surfing over a wave. We're not interested in that. That's a mzungu sport. I agree, but there's a lot to be learnt in it. You time a wave and then you ride on the power of that wave. Politics is like that. In fact, Raila Odinga is a guru at playing that game. In politics, you don't go out there and try very hard to sell your agenda from the grassroots. That will take you 10 lifetimes and you only have one. And even after all that hard work, it may not work. It is much better to look for a wave. And the wave currently in Kenya is high cost of living. People are fed up, especially in the Mount Kenya region, because these brothers and sisters of ours are businessmen. And businesses have been hit very hard by UDA policies. Okay? That is when Uhuru Kenyatta stood up to address the NDC. He had a problem starting his speech. The cheers were too loud. They couldn't stop. Timing. The timing, in my opinion, was perfect. And let me just say this in conclusion. If you are living in a country, anywhere in this world, where a former president is forced to be active in politics, then you know that country of yours is in serious trouble. Because anybody who has been president of Kenya knows too much. Anybody who has been president of Kenya has a lot of clout and support countrywide. You don't want that kind of person as your political enemy or your political opponent. You don't. It doesn't make sense. It won't work. it will always work against you. And so when you have a country where a government has a policy of provoking a former president, it doesn't matter what they did. It doesn't matter at all what they did. Then you know that country is not in trouble. It is not even in serious trouble. It is in something much, much worse than that. Allow me to give you a heads up. Weekly Intelligence Briefings number 108 is out. And I can't even describe it. Moto kuliko pasi ya makaa. It is beyond that. Okay? In this particular issue of WIB, I cover a highly sensitive topic. Political assassinations. Okay? And there's one unfolding in our country right now, believe it or not. Find out in my latest WIB. You can see the details on your screens right now. Take advantage of this very latest special offer. It is also super fascinating that this latest effort, kumaliza kabisa, is very similar to yet another political assassination that happened some time back, that of Mutula Kilonzo Sr. Okay, those who have taken in my ebook on that topic, very comprehensive, describing the most high-tech political assassination in the history of Kenya, that of Mutula Kilonzo Sr., will know what I mean. By the way, you can get hold of that ebook. Details on your screens, in case you've not seen it, because I refer to it in WIB number 108. And it might not be very easy for you to understand even the trends that have been unfolding in our country since 2013. It might not be easy for you to understand and put everything together without the information from this ebook that I did in 2013. Until next time, this is Kshs. Kumekucha.